The foot is after many days of rest resilient again, but the hand still doesn't quite want to play along yet. I'm still on light duty and I'm waiting for the doctor to allow me to drive again. Our Panzer III is back from the repair unit and actually ready for action. But the scarcity in fuel is only permitting small excursions, and therefore it's only really driven when it becomes necessary. It drives one crazy when one's not completely ready for action. But I think it could also be worse. The chief physician takes another look at the hand and, as a precaution, wants to send me to a staff physician in the direction of Pyatigorsk. For the following day, I obtain permission from the platoon leader and organize myself a means of transportation. Early the next morning, I'm on my way. With a supply truck, I reach Pyatigorsk. After a few hours, we're finally there. I report to the infirmary and ask my way through to the recommended staff physician. A short time later, I'm sitting with the doctor and tell him about my accident. He examines the hand and performs a few tests. After 20 minutes, he states that the pinky might possibly be restricted in its functionality, but the rest should still work. It'd be a few more days and the swelling would be completely gone. So 3 more days and I'm allowed to get back in as the commander. I look around a little bit more and meet a few comrades from the tank destroyers. We chat about tanks and the kills. Whether I'd already seen the US tanks here, they ask me. I haven't killed any yet. I've got enough with the Russian tanks, which are making our lives difficult. Toward evening, I grab myself a seat in a field car and I'm taking a long ride back to Mostock. The next morning, we are woken up by heavy tremors. I grab my gear and jump as well as I can into my uniform, having trouble putting on my pants and my jacket. There are considerable explosions, but it's no artillery. Russian bombers are throwing down on the city. Where's the Air Force when you need them? Our sector in Mozdok isn't hit much, but several other units and the remaining population don't have that much luck. Apparently, the Russians have no scruples to even hit their own people when they are bombing civilian housing. They certainly think we are quartered everywhere there. We have a roll call and the captain puts together a combat detachment. He wants to have the experienced people along since it's going against the forward positions of the Russians. Winter positions are to be improved, so that means we are staying here and waiting for spring. I go along to the scheduled situational conference where the captain asked me whether I was already fit for duty again. I try not to limp and keep my busty hand behind the back. He hands me a bolt with a nut on it and states I should quickly take that apart. I look at him. He knows that I'm not able to do this yet. He pats me on the shoulder and states that I should have my hands back in order first before he would take me along. All right then, so I still have to wait. I listen to the plans for attack and think myself that I will be able to follow along everything the combat detachment is doing at Corporal Schmidt's. The next morning, the detachment gets themselves ready. Infantry soldiers, anti-aircraft guns, reconnaissance, and tanks are to advance together. The captain rides in the lead, and I think that he will cause a big ruckus among the Russians. I have received mail from home, a package from my mother with cookies and knitted woolen mittens. Everything was okay at home, and all are well and healthy. Gudrun has also written and would like to have me home with her for Christmas. Of course, that won't happen unless we would be in the winter position and would be able to send a few men home. In the winter 41-42, Ivan made life for us pretty difficult. I hope that we'll be different this winter. At last we have better equipment than last year and are thus able to better make it through the winter. In the evening, there isn't yet a lot of news about the combat detachment. They are advancing and encountering little resistance. I'm sitting with a sarge, helping with the paperwork and take care of anything that comes up. On the desk, the bolt is always present, and I practice on it every hour. It's going better and better. I believe in 3 days it will be good to go again. Hermann stops by and tells me that our tank has been assigned a substitute commander and in an hour is being deployed with 2 other tanks against a cavalry advance. Sergeant Kraus has taken over the commander's seat, a good man who is cautious. I wish Hermann good luck, and he's off again. At night, I'm sitting back in my quarters and once again reading through all the letters from home. I also incorporate the latest developments into my situational map. If one looks at it closely, it appears to slowly be going backwards in the south, southeast, east, and in the northeast. But of course, those are just tactical straightening of the front lines in order to occupy better positions for the winter. The night is short, for we are woken up quite early. A unit is to be assembled as fast as possible because a small unit with my crew has been cut off. This looks pretty bad, therefore something needs to happen. 3 armored personnel carriers and 2 armored reconnaissance vehicles, as well as a 20mm anti-aircraft gun on half-track, are equipped in a hurry. I grab my gear, put on the thick new knitted mittens over my bandaged hand, and report to the reconnaissance commanders. I can go along as a gunner on the 222, an armored 4-wheel scout car. I already know that one. After 2 hours we depart and receive the message that the tank had to Hedgehog and are now encircled. Anti-tank guns and infantry all around, and then also the Russian cavalry, which keeps attacking over and over again. After 3 hours we make contact with the enemy and the Russians are already really cranking up the heat. We engage without mercy. The scout vehicles circumvent the opponent and the APC machine guns and the 20mm are holding right into them. After 2 minutes we swept away the Russians and are advancing further. By the columns of smoke we are able to recognize where our people are located. Again we drive ahead with the small vehicles, and while driving at top speed I let the 20mm cannon speak. I had free rein, the commander had told me, identified targets where to be engaged. This way we are breaking up the encirclement and the infantry soldiers and anti-aircraft vehicle push along through. It doesn't take long, we spotted the small farm compound where our tanks are sitting. It doesn't look good, all 3 shot up, the tracks are off and I think those won't get out there again. We keep the lane open and first have to recover the wounded. I see Hermann with a thick bandage leaning against the tank. I expect bad things. Hermann has a bullet stuck in the shoulder. The loader and the radio operator have fallen. Sergeant Kraus suffered a shoot fracturing his thigh. Only our tank gunner is without a scratch. We load everyone up and fight off the advancing Russians. We receive the order to blow up the tanks because we won't be able to recover then, and even if we were, the risk would be too high and also the fuel would not be sufficient. Therefore, explosive charges are prepared and we perform a fighting retreat. The artillery is supporting us again with well-placed blocking fire and is covering our retreat. A Russian plane joins in and probably wants to scout out the situation. But it risks too much and flies right into the burst of our 20mm anti-aircraft gun. One wing is sheared off, burning the plane crashes to the ground. Now the explosive charges are set off. One Panzer IV and two Panzer III detonate in a loud boom. I'm really sad that again 2 of my comrades have remained with the enemy and that my tank is also gone. We form the rear guard and together with the 20mm anti-aircraft gun stay behind. It doesn't take long and the Russians are following up. Close to 50 Russians on horseback are galloping like madmen in our direction. Behind them following 2 scout cars. We let them close in to within 100 meters, then follows the fireburst. They have no cover, and apparently they also haven't spotted us since we are waiting behind a small row of bushes. The fireburst is devastating. I'm not even aiming, but just swing the turret back and forth. The anti-aircraft gun is engaging the right wave of attack, and I'm in the left. Men and horses are torn to pieces by the explosive rounds and shredded. One more swing and another, the anti-aircraft gun is reloading, and the entire assault has collapsed. The scout cars are driving their vehicles through a mound of horse cadavers and humans. I keep shooting and hit right into the driver's hatch of the left vehicle. The shell explodes inside the vehicle and leaves the car standing, burning in a sea of bloody bodies. Now the attackers have caught on. The last car desperately tries to turn away and presents its side to the anti-aircraft gun. The gunner there pushes down his foot pedal, and another 10 rounds tear the second car into pieces. The attack has been repelled, and we now try to catch up with our comrades. After 2 hours, we are back in Mostar. The wounded are taken care of, and I promise Hermann that I will pick him back up as soon as he's recovered. I help out carrying the stretcher with Sergeant Kraus. With a painful look on his face, he looks at me and tells me that he was sorry. I shake my head and explain to him that it sometimes simply happens. It wasn't his fault. The commander of the armored reconnaissance vehicle stops by and thanks me. Usually I'm always happy about praise, but the grief is weighing heavier today. No, I don't have a tank anymore. Hermann is in the military hospital. The 2 other comrades are dead. Only the gunner is still there. Later I talk to Willy about what has happened. He explains that they were lured into a trap. Hidden anti-tank guns opened fire, and before anyone could see what was going on, they had to prepare an all-around defense in a small farming compound. The Russians had attacked over and over, and that's it. I thank him for the report and go into my quarters. What else should happen now? It almost can't get any worse. The next morning, I go over to the Sarge to spend my final day there before the doctor finds me fit for action again. When I arrive at the regimental office, Schmidt and the Sarge are sitting there with heads hung down, though they already heard what had happened yesterday. I sit down with them and I'm just about to tell how things were yesterday and what had happened to my tank. But the Sarge looks up sadly and motions me that I shouldn't continue to talk. Captain Rohrbeck had been fatally wounded overnight. I now hear. So my captain too has fallen. That's a blow, not just for us, but for the entire regiment.